Hi everyone, welcome to another episode in my sound mini series, and in today's video we're going to learn how to make this pretty simple but cool looking one, may I say, audio visualizer. And while doing it, we're going to learn about another P5 sound object called AudioIn, which allows us to get an audio input. So basically in this tutorial, we'll get an audio input from the computer's microphone. So before we start making the audio visualizer, let's quickly look at how the AudioIn object works. So we'll be using a total of two methods, the start method and the get level method. The start method is to start the audio in, so to get the audio input from the microphone. And then the get level is a method where once the microphone is turned on, then we can get the volume or the amplitude from the microphone. First, I'm going to declare a variable called mic, and then I'm going to set mic to a new audio in object. So new, don't forget p5.audioin object. And then to actually get this input, you need to use the method called start. So mic.start. And if you click run, there's going to be a pop-up that asks you whether you allow the computer or the browser to use the microphone. So let's do allow this time. Then now I can use the get level method to get the amplitude level or the volume of the microphone. So let's print that value. Alright, so you can see the number keeps going up. If I come a little bit closer to the microphone, if I talk a little bit quieter, you can see that the range of the values right now goes between like 0.001 to like 0.01. So it's not very high, but the range of the audio input from microphone here is between 0 and 1. Alright, so we're going to be using this to actually get the animation of the audio visualizer going. Alright, so now that we know how to use this, next what we're going to do is that we're going to create a grid of circles. What I'm going to do is I'm going to declare a few more variables. The first one is columns, second one is rows, and then the third one is size. And I'm actually going to set size to 10. And then inside draw, I'm going to delete, actually just comment this out first. I'm going to use the for loop to draw out a grid of circles. So let I equals to 0, I less than columns, I plus plus, and then another loop, let j equals to 0, j less than rows, and then j plus plus. Alright, so before we can keep going, we need to actually define what columns and rows is, because we have not yet done that. So columns is going to be width divided by size, and then rows is going to be height divided by size. Alright, so we should have 40 by 40 grid of circles. And then now we're going to draw a circle using an ellipse function, which takes in a total of 4 arguments. The first two are the x and y coordinates of the center of the circles, and then the third and the fourth are the width and the height. So I'm going to declare x to be equals to I times size, and then y to be equals to j times size. And then I'm going to put that as the x and y coordinates, and then the size will be size comma size, the width and the height. Let's click run. Alright, so now we have a grid of 40 by 40 circles. But as you can see, because the first two arguments are the coordinates of the center of the circles, I want to also add size divided by 2 and size divided by 2 here as well. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to create another array actually called D for distance, and D is going to be a 2D array, and we're also going to use a nested for loop from columns and rows here, same thing. But then to create a 2D array inside the outer loop here, we need to first populate this array, this 1D array, with a bunch of empty 1D arrays, and then inside here we can then populate it with the values that we want to populate. And the value that we want to populate is distance from the center of each of these circles to the center of the canvas. And I want to do it this way because I want to vary the color between each of these circles based on the distance it is from the center of the canvas. All right, so what we're going to do is that we're going to use a function called dist, D-I-S-T, which is the built-in function within P5, and it calculates the distance between 2 points. So the 2 points that we're going to calculate is between this location here, the x and y coordinates of the center of the circle, and then width divided by 2 and height divided by 2. Now we have a 2D array called D, and it stores the distance between all of these circles from the center of the canvas. But the values that are inside here are going to range between 0 and what? So let's look at this. So the distance of this circle here is going to be width divided by 2, right? And the distance from this circle here to the center of the canvas is going to be height divided by 2. And the maximum distance, which is the distance of the circles that are at the corner of the canvas here, are going to be, if we were to use the equation a squared plus b squared equals to c squared, it's going to be width divided by 2 squared plus height divided by 2 squared equals to this distance here square. And to get that distance, the maximum distance, we just do a square root. So the reason that I just went through that equation is because we already have the values inside this D2D array, but we want to map these values between 0 and the maximum distance to the value between, let's say, 0 to 255, right? So what we want to do in here is that, let's say that we want to fill a color C, but C is actually going to be D of I and J, and we need to map this value, right? That goes between 0 and the maximum distance to 0 and 255. So let's first declare a variable called max, and max is going to be the square root of width divided by 2 squared plus height divided by 2 squared, right? So we can use sqrt for square root, and then for width divided by 2 squared, we can use the function power, and then the first argument is the base, width divided by 2, and then the second argument is what is the power you want to raise it to, so 2. Then the second one is going to be plus power of height divided by 2, and then comma 2, right? So this expression says width divided by 2 square plus height divided by 2 square, and then the square root of that, and then we will get the maximum distance of these circles at the end of the canvas, at the corner of the canvas. All right, so we have this, and then we just click run. And as you can see here, the ones at the corners have the values that is 255, while the one in the center has a darker value closer to 0. And you can switch this to whatever you want, right? All right, but actually how I want to do it is a little bit different, because I actually have an array of colors that I want to use as the color that we're gonna be putting on this audio visualizer. So let's get that color array. Let's call it colors, and it is going to be these set of colors that has a total of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 colors. And now what we're going to do is, instead of mapping it from 0 to max to 0 to 255, I want to map it between 0 and the length of my array here, colors array. So colors.length, and that is because I want to get the index value. But now if I click run, it actually doesn't work, because C is going to be between 0 and 10, which is black. So now what we need to do is, how about I print out what C is right now. So it is a decimal value that ranges between 0 and actually 9.75. And so I actually want to use this value C as an index. So actually I'm going to change the name to index, and we're going to need to get an integer. And to do that, what I can do is that I can use a function called floor to get an integer value closest to this decimal value. So let's click run again. Actually, we need to print index, and then this doesn't work right now. All right, so now we get a value that is between 0 and 9. Perfect. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to put in C to be equals to colors of index, right? All right, so now we get this nice color from the color palette that we chose. But what if you want to get a multiple rings of these colors? So let's say right now we have just one set of 10 colors, right? But what if I want to have 20 of these colors? So actually just these 10 colors, but 2 times. I can create another variable, let's call it rings, and let's set it to 2. So what I want to do is that instead of getting an index between 0 to 10, right, the length is 10, I want to multiply this by rings. But as you might imagine, if I click run, I get an error because what? Because there are only a total of 10 values here. So we can actually just use an index between 0 to 9. But what I can do is that actually inside here, instead of just putting an index, I can do index mod colors.length. This expression is called modulo, and it returns a remainder between the division of 2 numbers, in this case between index and the colors.length, which is the length of the colors array. If the index value is equals or greater than the length of this colors array, it will return a value that is between 0 and the length of the colors array minus 1, right? For example, if the index is equals to 12, in this case, because it can go between 0 and 20, right? If the index is 12, 12 divided by 10 has a remainder of 2, then we will get the color that is this one, right? In the index 2 location. So it will always be within this color array. So we will always just loop over and over again. So let's click run. Now we have 2 sets of rings, right? And we can increase this value to whatever we want. 3, 4, 5, right? I'm also actually going to increase the width here. All right, and I'm going to set it at 2. Right, so now what we want to do is that we want to move the colors to get the animation that we want. So what we can do is that we can actually just change or increment the value inside this 2D array. And to do that, I'm actually going to put it inside this nested for loop, and we're going to just do d of I and j plus or equals to 1. Let's increment it by 1 at a time. And then now it moves quite nicely. All right, what if we change from plus equals to minus equals? It doesn't work. Why is that? Because the reason that I want to change from plus equals to minus equals is because I want it to change in a different direction. I want it to look like it's moving out, but because we're subtracting the value inside here, it will become a negative number, right? And then when this becomes a negative number, then everything becomes a negative number, and we cannot use an index value that is a negative number. So what we can do is we can use a function called ABS for absolute value to change the value of the value inside this 2D array D into a positive number. So if I do this, then now we get this direction that we want, or that I want, but we do not get the error that we got previously anymore. Perfect. And now we're going to incorporate the microphone into changing the animation here. And what we're going to use is we're going to use this mic level value that we play around initially, right? So how about we set this value as amplitude. And then we can just use it to replace this value here. Hello? Okay, but maybe it's too small. We can multiply it by, let's do 15. Hello? 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 And then now you get this basic audio visualizer that is looking pretty cool. This is a pretty interesting one where it is actually quite simple to create the graphics that you see here, and also just use a different kinds of input to actually make it a little bit more interactive. So I hope that you like this one and give it a try.